Sonic the Hedgehog, my favorite series in all of gaming. With over 100 games, multiple animated series, comics, and now even movies to his name, there is an absolutely insane amount of interesting trivia, Easter eggs, theories, and lost media throughout the franchise. Enough for me to make this almost 600 entry iceberg. We obviously have a lot to go over, so let's not waste any time. This is the definitive Sonic Iceberg Explained. Layer 1. Rad Mobile. This is an arcade racing game developed by Sega, and throughout the whole game, you see this little blue-armed Sonic figure hanging from the rearview mirror. The interesting thing is this game was released in November of 1990, 7 months before Sonic 1, making this Sonic's first official appearance. A fitting fun fact to start off this very long iceberg. Hidden Palace Zone. Easily the most famous piece of cut content from any Sonic game. The Hidden Palace Zone was originally intended to be a, as the name implies, hidden zone in Sonic 2, accessed by falling down that infamous giant spike pit in Mystic Cave Zone. According to Yuji Naka, you were originally going to unlock Super Sonic after beating this zone. However, due to a combination of Sonic 2's hectic development and memory constraints, it ended up as one of several zones cut from the game. With cheats, you can access what remains of the zone on earlier builds of the game, although it's obviously incomplete and impossible to navigate without debug mode. You can see some cool stuff like this Master Emerald looking thing you are meant to break to go down a pipe similar to Chemical Plant, and listen to its kick-ass zone theme. The general concept and stage name was reused in Sonic 3 obviously, and in the Christian Whitehead mobile port / remaster of Sonic 2, fans finally got to experience a reimagined version of the zone, accessible through the same Mystic Cave pit as originally intended. It even comes complete with an original boss fight. Ashura. If Hidden Palace Zone is the most famous cut content, Ashura is easily the most famous glitch from any Sonic game. This is activated through debug mode in Sonic 2, where after spawning a ton of waterfall objects, it'll cause Sonic's sprite to glitch out, giving him this crazy looking green and black fur, or spines I guess. Fans have dubbed this form Ashura, creating a ton of fan art of him as if he's like an OC. One really cool fact is this glitch was a direct inspiration for Surge from the IDW comics. American versus Japanese Sonic. Fans are always arguing over whether Japanese or American Sonic is better. You see, primarily in the classic days, Sonic was represented radically different in the two territories. There's a lot of really crazy Japan exclusive stuff and weird differences between the two that'll show up later. But for this entry, let's focus on the most prominent thing, which is obviously the design of Sonic himself. Most famously in promotional art, cartoons, and box art, US Sonic was a lot rounder and made to look more cool and edgy versus the cuter look in the Japanese content. He also has that fuck-ass mohawk instead of his normal spikes. Personally, I will always prefer the Japanese design, but the Western one does have a unique nostalgic appeal. And the current classic Sonic look Sega's been using since generations is sort of like a mix of the two. 06 Platinum Hit. Yep, Sonic 06, what most would consider the worst Sonic game, and perhaps one of the worst video games ever made, got a Platinum Hits release for Xbox 360. This does make sense, since the requirement to get a Platinum Hits release is merely selling over 400,000 copies, not to be good necessarily, but it is still so bizarre to see Microsoft chose to add freaking Sonic 06 of all games on this long ass list of super beloved memorable titles for the 360. I'm outta here. A fun Easter egg in Sonic CD where if you wait 3 whole minutes without pressing a single button, Sonic will get so bored he'll kill himself by jumping off screen after saying his famous "I'm outta here" line. I'm outta here! Resulting in a full-on game over even if you have multiple lives. Another really odd fact is according to Masato Nishimura, who voiced Sonic here, he actually says "I'm outer here" with like an ER, like the animal. Okay, now I can't unhear it. I'm outta here. CD sound test Easter eggs. That very same Masato Nishimura is the artist behind the famous "Fun is Infinite" screen from Sonic CD. His signature being the name Bujin, combined with the bizarrely unsettling boss music in the US version of the game, made this an incredibly creepy Easter egg back in the day. You'd always see this in those old like top 10 disturbing Easter eggs in kid games videos. But anyway, it's accessed through inputting a specific number sequence in the game's sound test, which hid a bunch of other really cool little Easter eggs to find. We have this cutesy Sonic with text translating to "You are cool," a screen with Tails saying "See you next game," this like Batman style buff Sonic the Manhawk looking thing, and the best of all is of course MC Sonic. Come in, bad boys. There is one more that I think is a bit less well known. Inputting 070707 lets you play a completely unique special stage with a giant Robotnik face in the background, and after beating it, you'll get a hidden staff credits. Pretty cool. Chao in Space. This is a reoccurring gag seen in various games from Sonic Adventure onwards, being a poster for an in-universe Chao in Space film franchise. Adventure 1 obviously had Chao in Space 1, Adventure 2 has Chao in Space 2, with its poster being a cute reference to the game's own light versus dark motif. Then in 06's Crisis City, you can find a ruined Chao in Space 3 poster. Generations shows us a billboard for Chao in Space 4, as well as both Chao in Space The Search for Tikal and Chao in Space 2 Perfect Chaos Strikes Back, both being very obvious Star Trek and Star Wars references. Where's that damn fort Chaos Emerald? Really funny line from Shadow the Hedgehog.
Where's that damn fourth Chaos Emerald?
I guess since the realistic guns guaranteed this game would get a 10+ rating, Sega felt they had to lean into the edginess by having Shadow frequently drop very PG-13 swear words. And this is an example of it at its most unnecessary and tryhard, but in a very charming, kind of funny way.
Disgusting black creatures, get out of my sight.
Funnily, to get the 4th Chaos Emerald in Sonic Generations, you have to beat Shadow's boss fight. I wonder if that was an intentional reference. Complete timeline. The main Japanese Sonic website, Sonic Channel, which is where all that cool official art comes from, published an official Sonic timeline just last year. For the most part, the games take place in release order, with Sonic CD confirmed to take place before 2, which people have always argued over. And the Mania write-up seems to retcon the whole Sonic from another dimension thing, describing him as returning to his original time at the end. Other weird things is that it places Sonic 4 at the beginning of the modern era, and there are some other minor errors/retcons. Dragon Ball Z. Sonic has taken a ton of inspiration from Dragon Ball. First off, the most obvious is Super Sonic being extremely similar to the Super Saiyan transformation, the 7 Chaos Emeralds and the 7 Dragon Balls, their stronger counterpart the Super Emeralds and the Namekian Dragon Balls. It's confirmed Shadow's personality was based off of Vegeta, Silver also is inspired by Future Trunks, and apparently Sonic and Tails' relationship is based off that of Piccolo and Kid Gohan. One really crazy one is Sonic 3's special stages with you running along a small repeating sphere was inspired by King Kai's planet. Those are the biggest ones that are either outright or essentially confirmed to be true, but there's a lot more I could point out, such as Amy and Sonic's dynamic in CD, feeling very similar to Chi-Chi and Kid Goku in early Dragon Ball, but I think you get the point. Let's move on. Nazo. Do you guys remember Nazo? This mysterious looking character that only ever appeared as an end stinger in the Japanese promotional trailer for Sonic X. In research, I found out the reason everyone calls him Nazo is because that's what his file name of an image of him on Sega's website was called. Nazo translating to mystery. This character would of course never appear in the actual show, but at the time fans theorized it could possibly be an original character or maybe Hypersonic. Many years later, in a text interview, Asuka himself confirmed this was simply intended to be supersonic. Asuka calls it an alternate style of supersonic that went unused, which sounds a lot like hypersonic, but apparently not. Despite him never officially making an appearance, fans of course adopted the Nazo character as their own, most famously in our next entry. Nazo Unleashed. Holy crap, this is so nostalgic. Nazo Unleashed is an iconic Flash animated Dragon Ball Z style short movie where Sonic and friends fight the Nazo character. Created by Chikara X all the way back in 2006, it still holds up today. It really captures the Dragon Ball Z fight style like really well, and it's just really cool. Especially Shadow and Sonic fusing into Shattuck and then going Hyper Shattuck to beat Nazo. Hell yeah, dude. Your Name the Hedgehog. This is just an old joke / phenomenon, where if you type your name into Google, followed by the Hedgehog, you will find a Sonic OC named after you. Try it out yourself. I guess this is just because of the absolutely endless amount of Sonic OCs across the internet. A lot of them just end up being like recolors, but there's also a ton of fan-made designs that are actually pretty cool if you look for them. Dreams Come True. Dreams Come True is a super successful Japanese pop band with a lot of ties to Sonic. This is because the band's second member, Masato Nakamura, in the early days of Dreams Come True, was hired to do the music for both Sonic 1 and 2. And after becoming popular, the band reused melodies from Green Hill Zone on the song Marry Me, and the Sonic 2 ending theme on the track Sweet Sweet Sweet. They later returned to collabing with Sega, remixing Marry Me for Sonic 06's ending theme, and for Sonic's 35th anniversary, they did a version of Green Hill Zone with lyrics, which, even though I can't understand them, is pretty cool. It is also alleged there's some weird confusing copyright thing, where apparently Dreams Come True are the official copyright holders for the first two games' soundtracks, since Nakamura composed them, and Sega has to pay a licensing fee whenever they use them, which is really crazy to think about. Michael Jackson. Speaking of classic Sonic soundtrack anomalies, it was an infamous rumor for decades that Michael Jackson was brought on to compose some of the music for Sonic 3. And I mean, if you check the songs that he allegedly worked on, a lot of them bear very striking similarities to his own work. So yeah, anyone can tell this is true. However, for whatever reason, Sega refused to confirm it and has even outright denied the rumor several times. Even after Jackson's keyboard player, Brad Buxer, confirmed it and gave details on his work in a 2009 interview. As for why his name was not in the credits, according to Buxer, it was because Michael didn't like how his compositions sounded on the Genesis sound chip, and a former Sega employee stated it was due to his allegations, which surfaced around the same time as Sonic 3's release. One really unfortunate consequence of this is that Sonic 3's soundtrack and the game itself is stuck in some weird limbo because of it, with rights issues to the music being the presumed reason Sega almost never re-releases the game, and why we had to wait till 2022 to finally get a Christian Whitehead-style widescreen remaster of 3 and Knuckles. Fan games. There are a ton of Sonic fan games. There will be at least a few mentioned throughout this iceberg, but my favorite is either Sonic Robo Blast 2 or the S Factor, where you play as Silver and Sonia. I played those a lot back in the day. Thankfully, Sega does what Nintendo don't here and actually appreciates their fans' hard work and dedication to make completely original Sonic games for zero financial gain, instead of just cease and desisting them. In fact, Sega is so cool with fan games, they hired a team of fan game devs to make Sonic Mania. Flicky Origins. Flickies, the little blue bird guys that pop out of badniks, actually originate from an arcade game Sega put out all the way back in 1984. Flicky the game is actually just a blatant clone of Namco's Mappy, but yeah, I guess this retroactively makes Flicky the first ever Sonic character. And I suppose it also explains why Sega seems particularly attached to them as opposed to the other animal friends. Lock-on technology. There's a lot of interesting development stories from Sonic 3 that'll show up later, but essentially due to a combination of its insane scope, cartridge memory limitations, and tight deadlines, by the time the game was set to release, the team had only completed about 50% of the stages. So Sonic 3 essentially released as half a game, with 3 and Knuckles coming out half a year later as the second half. The cartridge having this incredibly weird looking slot on top of it that you could then attach Sonic 3 to, creating the true, complete, original version known as Sonic 3 and Knuckles. As a bonus, connecting Sonic 2 to the Sonic & Knuckles cartridge allows you to play as Knuckles in that game, and although they could not get him to work in Sonic 1, connecting that instead allows you to play endless randomly generated Get Blue Ball stages. Some people criticize this as being like the first mainstream example of DLC, essentially making you pay extra for the intended complete experience. but I also think it's a pretty incredible achievement. I mean, there's a very real alternate timeline out there where Sega deemed the lock-on stuff too expensive, or they just couldn't get it to work, and they instead simply forced the team to release an underwhelming, half-baked sequel. But instead we got what many would consider the best Sonic game, and perhaps one of the greatest video games ever made. Magic Gloves. This is a slightly obscure and very easy to miss upgrade in Sonic Adventure 2. The Magic Gloves can be found in City Escape, but to get them you first need to have gotten both the Bronze Bracelet and Flame Ring. Then you go back to City Escape and break these boxes to find it. The upgrade itself is really weird too. It lets Sonic grab enemies and shrink them into these tiny spheres like they're gachapons or something, which you then can throw to kill them. Mean Bean Machine. One of many strange early spin-off titles in the Sonic series, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine is basically a Mario 2 style localized Wii skin of an unrelated Japanese game, this just being a localized version of Puyo Puyo. The really interesting thing is that this game is specifically an Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog game, for Robotnik using his design from the cartoon and other characters like Scratch and Grounder showing up as well. And this weird piece of Sonic history was of course called back to in Sonic Mania, with Chemical Plant's boss fight being a Puyo battle against Eggman. OKKO. Probably the most underrated Cartoon Network show. I love its occasional moments of crazy nice animation and its distinct art style. Oh yeah, and the Sonic crossover episode's pretty cool too. I really love how Sonic and Tails look in this show's style, and you can tell there was a lot of passion put into this, and there were some true Sonic freaks on the team. Sonic and Tails both feel very in character, and there is a frankly absurd amount of references throughout the episode. Pingas. This is a line from Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog.
Snooping as usual, I see.
The Pingas soundbite becoming an absurdly prominent meme in the YouTube poop community. And it was even officially referenced in another Sonic cartoon, with Sonic Boom's writers sneaking it into the script of an episode.
Smooth move, Fox Boy.
Ah, Sonic the Hedgehog. Snooping as usual, I see.
Sonic. Sonic originates from this 2010 video by Onyx Hard entitled How to Draw Sonic Hedgehog, where he shows you how to draw Sonic using a mouse in Microsoft Paint, accompanied by this demented sounding pitch-shifted Green Hill Zone music. After this, it became a huge meme, even being referenced by Sega themselves several times over the years. There's this YouTube video where 3D Sonic runs around the Sega office. Crazy Carl's drawing of Sonic in the movie heavily resembles the meme, and he shows up as a t-shirt for your avatar in Sonic Forces. Soap. Those really cool shoes Sonic wears in Adventure 2 are based off the real-world shoe brand Soap. The collab not only included replacing Sonic's shoes, but plastering a ton of soap advertisements in the game itself. These have always been a fan favorite look for Sonic, but after SA2 they basically never appeared again. I can only assume there are some kind of licensing issues with them, but nowadays Soap doesn't even exist anymore, and they have started reappearing in merch and games, namely Forces and Frontiers, where they are referred to as the Grind Shoes and Adventure 2 shoes respectively. Soap shoes are specifically designed for grinding, and Sonic shoes are based off the red Soap Scorchers, as seen here. I guess they're pretty rare nowadays, since the only pair I could find for sale was this guy on eBay asking $7,000 for them. Sonic 2 multiplayer music. Did you notice basically a whole ass second soundtrack in Sonic 2? Yeah, in the multiplayer mode, every stage has an alternate theme. Well, up to Oil Ocean at least. They're basically remixes of the normal ones, and they're actually really freaking good. Some I even prefer over the base versions. I kinda wish these could have been used as like the Act 2 teams, that would have been cool. Sonic Twitter. Around 2015, the Sonic Twitter account started going crazy, posting tons of memes and funny replies, instead of just the usual promotional tweets about upcoming games and sales and like. This was after Aaron Reber took over as Sonic's social media manager, saying he wanted it to reflect Sonic's own cocky personality and Sega's irreverent, aggressive marketing of the 90s. And although it might not seem that crazy now, Sonic really was one of the first brands to do the whole self-aware me account thing, which now every other brand tries to copy to far less charming results. Sonic Extreme. The lost first true 3D Sonic game that never was. This is easily the most famous cancelled Sonic game, largely because of how insane its development process was. Years of office politics, switching engines, scrapping and restarting development, team members leaving, conflict between Japanese and American branches of Sega, and 2 of its lead programmers falling ill, one nearing death from their extreme overwork on the project. It's insane. From what little we got to see, the game looked quite odd, and not particularly good, to be honest. It uses this fisheye lens and a mix of polygonal and Donkey Kong Country style pre-rendered sprites. The fact Sonic Extreme never released, leaving the Saturn without a proper 3D Sonic game, is largely cited as one of the biggest reasons the console was such a profound failure, dealing a blow Sega was really never able to recover from. Sonic.exe. This is one of the most infamous creepypastas of all time. Created by JC the Hyena, it essentially follows some guy who gets a bootleg PC version of Sonic 1 that's haunted by an evil Sonic, who proceeds to kill Tails, Eggman, and Knuckles in the game, causing the narrator to piss his pants and cry like they were real people before it appears as a Sonic.exe plushie and presumably kills him too. It is insanely bad, but in a way that is quite funny and charming, like a lot of old creepypastas. You could also credit Sonic.exe with popularizing a lot of the common creepypasta tropes, like hyper-realistic blood, haunted bootleg games, the narrator listing the precise seconds any creepy thing appears on screen, and shit like the evil Sonic saying, "I am God." Despite its quality, it of course became insanely popular, and I can say firsthand was very effective at enticing and scaring little kids. I mean, the Markiplier Let's Play of the fan game based on it has over 10 million views, and it continues to grow even today, with Sonic.exe gaining newfound popularity through Friday Night Funkin' of all things, leading to countless alternate versions of the character and story throughout FNF mods, different fan games, and digital horror series. At this point, I'd say the Sonic.exe fandom has grown to be its own distinct thing outside of Sonic fans, which I guess is pretty cool for such a stupid little story. Sonic's Band. In the conceptualization stages of Sonic 1, Sonic was going to be part of a rock band. Sonic would be the vocalist with Vector the Crocodile on keyboard, as well as this monkey, rabbit, and chicken guy. Apparently they were going to show up in the sound test screen, but were ultimately scrapped. It was later revealed in Sonic 1's pitch they were actually designed to play a key role in the game itself. Basically, each zone would end with Sonic freeing one of his band members, the same way you free a bunch of animals in the final game. Although besides Vector being salvaged and reworked for Knuckles Chaotix, these characters went unused in any future games. But they did show up as members of Mina Mongoose's band in the Archie comics. Unleash Dreamcast. In Sonic Unleashed, if you look closely inside of Eggman's floating egg carrier, you can spot he has a Sega Dreamcast inside. The Sonic Cycle. This is a really famous old image from the Dark Age, pointing out the hopeless, repeating cycle the Sonic fanbase found themselves in. Basically, it goes step 1, a new game is revealed, it looks awesome and everyone gets excited, saying, this time it'll be a good game. Then step 2, more info releases, they add new friends and some dumb gimmick, and hopes begin to fall. And finally, step 3, the game releases and is critically slammed, with fans labeling it a disappointment, saying they'll never fall for it again, only for the next game to be announced and the cycle repeats. I do feel this is pretty accurate, honestly, especially considering it was made around the time of Unleashed / The Black Knight, since those games are heavily hyped up and then reviled when they came out. Even though nowadays people like them. Ugandan Knuckles. This is a dead meme from 2018 of this little fat Knuckles that talks in a Ugandan accent. The look of Knuckles originated from a Lost World review by Greg Silla.
The most recent main Sonic game and see what the series is up to. So, without further echidna,
Oh no!
which someone then decided to make a 3D model of in VR chat. It then becoming a trend in the game for people to use the model as an avatar, running around in large groups of small fat Knuckles, pretending to be Ugandan.
You don't know the way.
Yes, I do.
Do you know the way?
I know the way.
You have to have Ebola to know the way.
I have Ebola.
It doesn't know the way.
To know the way,
To know the
you
way,
need to
you
have
to know the
Ebola.
way. You don't know the way of the red Ebola or the blue Ebola. Do you want me to drink your...
This was really funny 8 years ago, I swear. Ugly Sonic. In the original marketing campaign for the Sonic movie, Sonic looked pretty horrifying, largely dubbed Sonic the Manhog, or simply Ugly Sonic, when his design was fully unveiled, set to freaking Gangster's Paradise for some reason. The backlash was swift and severe, with the sheer ugliness of Sonic's design making this a genuine mainstream story even for people who have nothing to do with Sonic or even gaming in general. It got so bad, Paramount famously pushed back the release to completely redo Sonic's CG, bringing on the Sonic comic artist Tyson Hesse to redesign it, which saved the movie from being a complete failure and instead making it a huge success, which I feel had a huge hand in reviving Sonic's image and mainstream popularity, with a feeling like he's more popular than ever today. The Barrel. Dubbed the Barrel of Doom by fans, this is a rotating cylinder that appears in Carnival Night Zone of Sonic 3. It is infamous for how horribly obtuse and confusing it is, causing me, and I'm sure a lot of you, to get stuck on it your first time playing the game, inevitably leading to death after the timer reaches 10 minutes. I think the confusion comes from previous times the obstacle appears. You can jump on it and it'll move just enough for you to progress. But when you get to this particular one, that doesn't move it enough, and in reality, you have to push up and down on the D-pad. But there is nothing else that works remotely like this anywhere else in Sonic 3 or any of the previous games. You can actually still find Reddit threads made nowadays of random people getting stuck here. And funnily, during a Q&A segment at a fan event, Kashi Yasuka himself was asked about it and actually apologized.
So I presume those people found that level quite difficult to understand, and I would actually be the person responsible for programming that level, so I am extremely sorry. Thank you.
Layer 2. Sonic X swearing. Yep, the Japanese version of Sonic X has Sonic swear in the very first episode. Sonic has actually always had the same voice actor in Japan, and he's known to ad-lib English phrases a lot, apparently, because English is cool. But it is just so weird hearing Sonic swear. I don't know, it just feels wrong. Actually, the JP version of Sonic X has a lot of really kind of risque stuff like this, which of course had to be changed when we got it. 4Kids. Yes, 4Kids, perhaps the most hated localization studio of anything ever. These are the people responsible for localizing Sonic X in English-speaking countries, and the list of insane changes they made to it, like every other beloved anime they get their hands on, is long and exhausting. To give some highlights, they remove almost all the text on any billboards, not even like just Japanese text, any text anywhere for some reason. They completely changed the soundtrack. Obviously Rouge's cleavage is erased, but only sometimes, and any lewd gags, blood, or references to alcohol is censored, which those are expected, I guess. Gunshots are changed to laser sounds, and they cut the eye catchers and any small scenes they can get away with from our commercial time. This is only a small list, and there are literally thousands of changes made throughout the show's run. Another very important thing that this dub introduced is what's referred to as the 4Kids cast, as due to location reasons, they hired new actors for all the characters, who then would also voice the characters in the games, which actually caused huge drama in the Sonic fandom of the time, most notably against Jason Griffith as Sonic.
Why does Jason Griffith always talk like this, in this flatline voice that kind of makes him sound like a younger Big the Cat? And always, I don't know why his speech pattern is always like this. It sounds so fake, it's so bad.
But honestly, I always liked the 4Kids cast. Maybe it's nostalgia, but I especially like Rouge.
Hi. It seems like Eggman's machines are looking for you.
I mean, no hate, but the new like Minnie Mouse voice just does not fit her at all.
I'll have to watch my back.
Oh, don't be like that. You know you can trust me to run a fair race with you. This time.
By 2010, the 4Kids cast was once again changed, with only Mike Pollock remaining, because really no one can do Eggman as well as him. But yeah, 4Kids kinda sucks. But they did give us Gotta Go Fast, so that's something. Shadow Death Retcon. According to Asuka, Shadow was always meant to have died and stayed dead after the events of Adventure 2. However, due to how popular he was with fans, they decided to bring him back in Heroes, and then even gave him his own game. And it's a good thing they did, as Shadow has practically since his inception always held the number 2 spot of the most popular Sonic character in popularity polls. Goggles. In Sonic 1 you can find an unused Goggles power-up. These were almost certainly to be used in Labyrinth Zone and would allow Sonic to breathe underwater. Maybe they felt like it was redundant since you already have the big bubbles, which make for a more tense and engaging gameplay experience. But they're not completely lost anymore, as Sonic Mania would reference this by having Sonic wear the lost goggles when he's piloting the tornado. Sonic Says. These are little PSA lectures Sonic gives at the end of every Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog episode. They're mostly normal stuff like stop at a stop sign when you're cycling and only call 991 in the case of emergencies, but a few of them, because of their subject matter, feel insanely weird for Sonic to be talking about, like the famous Stranger Danger one.
Kids, there's nothing more cool than being hugged by someone you like. But if someone tries to touch you in a place or in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable, that's no good. It's your body. No one has the right to touch you if you don't want them to. So what do? First, you say no. Then, you get out of there.
And the anti-smoking one that gave us smoking tails.
Try it. Whoa, little bro. That smoke will make you choke.
It doesn't make me...
Sonic Chew. Oh boy, Sonic Chew is a comic created by one Chris Chan.
Catch all power.
It follows Christine and Sonic Chew, a fusion of Sonic and Pikachu, as well as a litany of other original Electric Hedgehog Pokemon going on random adventures. This comic is the reason Chris Chan became known in the first place, with it gaining popularity on Something Awful, which led people to learn about the person behind it, and that kicked off the whole absurd, sometimes insanely hilarious, sometimes horribly depressing, ongoing saga of their whole life after that. The comic itself is a fascinating and I think quite remarkable piece of outsider art, with it giving an unfiltered view into Christine's life and unique worldviews. Many characters that show up are people she knew in real life. There's one issue where Sonic Chew and Rosa Chew have an extended lovemaking session, Chris Chan and Sonic Chew killing off her real-life internet trolls, and Christine creating a gay vaccine to eradicate gay people. Stuff like that. Sally in CD. For whatever reason, the US branch of Sega was hell-bent on Sally being a canon character in the Sonic franchise, going as far as to call Amy Princess Sally in Sonic CD's manual, despite the fact they look literally nothing alike, which I'm sure caused a lot of confusion for American kids at the time. And Knuckles. This is another famous Sonic meme, basically just slap and Knuckles at the end of anything and it's instantly funny for some reason. This is especially well used to make fun of games with stupidly long titles or excessively advertised bonus content. Hooters. During Sonic Force's promotional campaign, Sonic Team chose to partner with Hooters of all places. I'm not sure if that really captures Sonic's core demographic, but the images are very, very funny, and it of course spawned a lot of fan art. For the collaboration, participating restaurants served chili dogs, gave away Hooters branded Sonic coasters, and those insanely rare and valuable Sonic soap shoe plushies. Apparently they also played Fist Bump, which the girls danced to, but I unfortunately could not find any footage of that. Blaze's backstory. Although she is one of the absolute best written characters in the series, Blaze has suffered a lot at the hands of Sega's disregard for consistent continuity. So Sonic Rush establishes Blaze as the princess of the Soul Dimension. She ends up in Sonic's world, goes through a nice character arc, and works with Sonic to save both their worlds. Okay, but then Sonic 06 happens, and suddenly she's from the future instead of another dimension. Obviously there's the whole erasure of 06's events at the end, but that wouldn't magically make Blaze's backstory match her one from Rush. So maybe you'd say we're just supposed to ignore 06, or it's like an alternate version of Blaze, which would make sense since in Rush Adventure she's once again from the Soul Dimension, but then in Sonic Generations, Blaze is both described as being from the Soul Dimension and she remembers Crisis City, meaning both backstories are somehow simultaneously canon. Sega themselves has repeatedly stated since 06 that Blaze is from another dimension, yet at the same time, they will show Silver and Blaze together in Colors DS and say 06 is also to be considered canon. Realistically, I doubt this will ever get properly cleared up, and it's probably best to just not think about it too hard, since that seems to be what Sega is doing. Yuji Naka is alright. A little Easter egg in Shadow the Hedgehog where the gun soldiers will make this announcement.
Mr. Yuji Naka is alright!
Obviously referencing the, at the time, lead of Sonic team, Mr. Yuji Naka, although I'm not sure if he's doing so alright nowadays. Species confusion. What are Sonic and friends? Are they normal animals? Aliens? As of now, the official name seems to be that they are just animals. But then why are there also normal animals walking around in some games? Before this was largely hand-waved away by assuming Sonic and friends were basically aliens from another world, which was canon for a short while, like in Forces, but as of Frontiers, it's now firmly established everything takes place on one world. In the cartoons, Archie comics, and now even the movies, Sonic and the other anthropomorphic animals are Mobians, coming from the planet Mobius. And even today, many people still call Sonic species Mobians, since it's better than calling them talking animal people, or whatever Sega wants to use. Ugly Sonic publicity stunt. This incredibly widespread conspiracy states that Paramount and Sega worked together to purposefully engineer the ugliest motherfucker they possibly could for the Sonic movie trailer, so that the fan outcry would work as free publicity and get more people to watch the movie when they revealed the fixed version, which they had in fact had from the very beginning. It's a funny idea, but I mean, this is obviously not true, as we have leaked production materials using the old ugly design, never meant to be shown to the public, as well as a ton of merch that was released using that design. And above all, it would be so insanely expensive to create not only the fake trailer, but all that unused footage just to make this stunt as convincing as possible. Super Mario Bros. C. This is a sprite animated 2006 Newgrounds series by Alvin Ertwall. This entry also represents all those Sonic sprite animations you'd see, primarily on Newgrounds, which use the amazing Sonic Adventure sprites. Mario Bros. C itself is a mix of Sonic and Mario with some Dragon Ball Z style fights. It is super popular with a dedicated fanbase, and the most impressive thing is just how goddamn cool some of these fights look. There were 9 episodes made from 2006 till 2012, and then a full-on remake was launched in 2016, which was almost cancelled after Nintendo nuked his Patreon, but he ended up returning to the series, dropping episode 2 of the remake just a few years ago. Adult Swim bumpers. There are actually 2 Adult Swim commercial things relating to Sonic. First, in 2017, Sega made an ad for the channel promoting the Sonic YouTube channel. Then in 2019, Adult Swim aired a bumper poking fun at fans over the movie redesign fiasco. Classic Sonic Timeline Retcon. This refers to the frankly insane, quickly abandoned retcon Sega tried to do in Forces, having Tails refer to classic Sonic as that Sonic from another dimension.
Sonic? You're alive! Wait, what? Oh, you're that Sonic from another dimension, aren't you? Right, that makes sense.
I do not know what Sega's deal is with constantly confusing their own lore like this, but as we said earlier, as of the official Sonic timeline, he has gone back to just being a younger version of Sonic, as he should be. Sonic Synergy. This is the working title for a prototype version of Sonic Boom by Big Red Button. Similar to Sonic Extreme, this game has a wild development history where seemingly anything that could go wrong did go wrong. We actually have the internal prototype trailer for an early version titled Sonic Synergy, which lets us see what this game is going to be like before Sega decided to make it exclusive to Wii U due to their ongoing exclusivity deal with Nintendo, which was probably the biggest reason it ended up releasing in the sorry state it did. Sonic Synergy had much more impressive graphics, set pieces, and a big focus on being a multiplayer game with up to 4 people working together, which is where the name comes from. But all of this was untenable on the Wii U hardware, and had to either be heavily gutted or outright removed in the final game. As well as that, it was apparently intended to be far more focused on exploration and combat, similar to the Jak and Daxter games, which makes sense considering who Big Red Button is made up of, with speed being heavily downplayed. To be honest, although without Sega's meddling this would have been a much better game, technically, I really do not think it looks particularly great as it was either, as Big Red Button's ideas just do not fit the Sonic IP at all in my opinion, and it's clearly just wanted to make a Naughty Dog game with a Sonic skin. There are other interesting stories from Boone's development and earlier versions, such as a crazy alternate origin story for Sonic and Eggman, but they really deserve their own entries, so we'll get to that soon. The Sonic Bible. Although this sounds really funny, Bibles are a pretty normal thing to be made for big franchises. They're essentially internal documents used to establish rules, looks, and the canon of an IP that all other media should follow. But the Sonic Bible is specifically a Sega of America thing, and explains where a lot of the localized weirdness comes from. Most prominently, this is where Sonic's world being named Planet Mobius and the name Dr. Ivor Robotnik come from. 3D Blast cut music. There is a ton of unused music throughout Sonic 3D Blast's various prototypes. The weirdest is definitely this one. Sound familiar? Yep, they reused this for Sonic 4. Chaos 3 and 5. So Chaos changes form every time he eats one of the Chaos Emeralds, right? But we never get to see him after getting the 3rd and 5th Emerald. This is true for Sonic X and other adaptations as well, and it seems to be something that'll forever remain a mystery. I guess you can infer 3 is just an in-between point of 2 and 4, like a half fish, half lizard man. But Chaos 5 is a lot harder to envision. Maybe something similar to the Bio Lizard? I don't know. Cowgirl Moan. In Adventure 1, outside of the casino, there's this cowgirl standee thing, and if you hit it, she moans. This was obviously removed from the releases outside of Japan. Deus Ex. In Deus Ex Mankind Divided, if you enter this little game store, on this shelf you can spot this very interesting Easter egg. It's a game called Knuckles, Knuckles, and Knuckles, and Knuckles. Tails Gets Trolled. Tails Gets Trolled is an ongoing webcomic by Laserbot, beginning on DeviantArt in 2011, which is kinda like the good version of Sonic Shoot. I find it hard to summarize just what Tails Gets Trolled is and why it's so cool, but to put it simply, it is a, although technically poorly made, incredibly entertaining and hilarious experience, both intentionally and unintentionally. It begins with Tails getting trolled, and from there spins off into a crazy war between the trolls, Sonic and friends, and an absolutely absurd extended cast, bringing in characters like Mario, Chester the Cheetah, Kermit the Frog, Batman, and a hefty helping of OCs. The comic can be incredibly crass, offensive, and violent, but in a way that is somehow really charming. If you're interested, either read it itself, watch the Cybershelf video, or check out the beloved fan dub by Armek on the Ultimate Tails Gets Trolled YouTube channel, which covers a large chunk of the series. Big cameos. Big can be seen hiding in most stages across Sonic Adventure 2, but less known is you can actually make him appear in various cutscenes as well. To do this, you simply have to press the A button at predetermined times. And there's a similar gimmick in Sonic and the Secret Rings, where standing still at certain specific points in stages will prompt a big cameo. R2 refers to the cut second stone from Sonic's CD. It's known as R2 as the stones in CD are referred to as rounds in the game's code. And there you can see it goes R1 Palm Tree Panic, and then skips over to R3 Collision Chaos. R2 was apparently going to be an underground stage titled Dubious Depths, and although we have very little information on it, it seems all but confirmed this area we see Sonic run through in the outro animation is the elusive R2. Given the visuals match its description, and it shows this weird ant-lying badnik who never appears in the actual game. Ken Penders. Ken Penders is quite an infamous figure to Sonic fans. The guy is an artist and writer who held great influence during the Sonic Archie comic days. He's widely disliked for his distinctive way of drawing Mobians and incredibly bizarre story concepts he introduced, such as inserting blatant Nazi analogs into the Sonic comic, and his bizarre obsession with echidnas, creating endless OCs that'd often take the main focus of the comic instead of actual Sonic characters, and generally being perceived as having a lack of appreciation for the established characters and lore of the very series he was working on. There's a lot of weird stuff from him that'll show up later, but undoubtedly the biggest impact he had on the Sonic series is the infamous lawsuit he and Sega got involved in. To heavily simplify things, when EA and Sega were releasing Sonic Chronicles, Penders considered Shade and the game's Echidna lore to be infringing on his own Echidna OCs, and this led to a court case which he actually won, resulting in Sega having to give up the rights to all the characters he created, and requiring a full reboot of the Archie comics to explain all his characters being removed. Macy's Parade Incident. This is a huge annual parade held in New York every year, and a Sonic balloon has shown up in several of them. However, in his first appearance in 1993, due to heavy winds, Sonic was flown face first into a light post, which tore his eye open, causing him to deflate and fall, injuring a random kid and police officer. And the very same thing happened again in 1995, and then in 97 his whole ass head got ripped off somehow. Christian fan art. This describes a bizarre trend where there is just a ton of Sonic fan art that is specifically Christian. I guess I'll show a bunch of them on screen now. As for why this is, I really have no idea. Maybe in strict religious households, kids are more likely to get into Sonic since he's strictly kid-friendly, but still has an element of coolness and rebellion to him. A lot of this fan art, especially the more recent stuff, is obviously made silly on purpose, but a majority of these are unironic. 25th Anniversary Stream. This event Sega held for Sonic's 25th anniversary is especially memorable both for good and mostly bad reasons. For whatever reason, there is an insane amount of technical issues throughout this whole stream. The absolute worst is like the entire first half has this prominent buzzing noise in the background. And this is where they first announced Sonic Forces and Mania, which was pretty cool and went okay on stream, but at the actual event I guess they couldn't get it to work, so the guy controlling the screen had to like awkwardly look for it on his laptop. And there's other generally funny moments like the guy singing Sonic Heroes.
Watch right here.
And whoever was in this Sonic costume just seemed so done with this shit.
It's no doubt that this is going to be a really successful partnership. And so when we're thinking about, well, you guys know this, there's a lot of different Sonics out there. So when we're thinking about...
Pakistan commercial. Around the release of Sonic Heroes, Sonic partnered with McDonald's to release these cool little LCD games. However, the Pakistan branch of McDonald's decided to create their own commercial for them with full original animation, and as you can tell, it looks extremely bad. A re-upload of this to YouTube went mega viral, sitting at over 10 million views today.
Shadow basketball. Knuckles baseball.
The real fastest thing alive. This refers to how Eggman clearly outruns Sonic in Sonic 2, so is he the true fastest thing alive? To be serious, a lot of people theorize Sonic purposely let him get away because he enjoys the chase, or perhaps Eggman made himself speed shoes, similar to Shadow's, but this was finally officially explained in a Twitter takeover just recently.
Sonic, if you truly are the fastest thing alive, how come Eggman always beats you in a foot race after you destroy his mechs?
You know, that was a long time ago, but yeah, I'd like to know exactly how that happened too.
It's simple. I work out.
Jazzwares. Jazzwares used to be the company who made all the Sonic figures. Starting from 2008, they have made a ton of figures, plushies, and other junk. They're definitely best known for their awesome 4-inch line, which saw pretty much every popular Sonic character of the time get a figure. I always really loved these and how accurate they are while still having a pretty good amount of articulation. And in 2014, they ended up giving up the license, and it was then given to Tomy, who mostly just made Sonic Boom merch. And this shit just sucked, bro. Truly a dark age for Sonic toys. But then by 2019, it was changed once again to Shaq Specific, who launched their own articulated 4-inch line that also kicks ass, mainly for how game accurate their sculpts are and just how deep they're willing to go with some of these character choices. I mean, they made a Mephiles figure in 2023, as well as Tikal, Chaos, Fang, and even Mecha Sonic. Jamaican Knuckles. This is a widespread theory that Knuckles was originally intended to be explicitly Jamaican themed. So the evidence is that his color scheme takes influence from the Rastafarian flag, he has dreads, and lives on an island. He is actually shown speaking in a Jamaican accent in the Sonic 3 American Strategy Guide. If this ever actually was the case, it would appear they decided to shift away from it by adventure, since the Echidna tribe there is obviously based off Native Americans. SA1 textures. This refers to how most of the textures seen in the areas of Sonic Adventure are real-life photos. They did this a lot in N64 games too. It's a big part of that very distinctive early 3D game look I always really liked. We know Sonic Team made a big excursion to the Americas when developing SA1, and this is where presumably these images were taken. A lot of the stages are also directly based off of these real-world locations, which is pretty cool. Seaside Hill, for example, is directly inspired by the beaches of Cancun, and the coolest is that the Echidna's temple is a clear recreation of this real-life temple in Tikal, Guatemala. Chrissy Stevens. Chrissy Stevens is a music artist and very successful producer who was commissioned to do the end credits song for the first Sonic movie, only for it to go unused in favor of that incredibly forgettable Wiz Khalifa Ty Dolla $ign one instead. He did upload the full song to his YouTube, and listening to it, it is insane how hard it mocks the one we got. Entitled Gotta Go Fast, it actually sounds like a Sonic song, using the Green Hillstone melody, and is pretty good in its own right. Moon inconsistencies. So in Sonic Adventure 2, Eggman blows up like half the moon, but then in later games it looks totally normal again. What the hell is up with that? The most egregious example is definitely Shadow the Hedgehog's intro, where we see it very prominently and in perfect shape. Like bro, SA2 came out like 3 years ago. The only time a game remembered this detail is the Dark Beginnings animation made for Shadow Generations. In 2013, Asuka did actually address this, and he says that when we see the moon, we are simply seeing it from the side that wasn't blown up. Totino's. During that infamous 25th anniversary stream, another odd aspect was the constant shilling for Totino's pizza rolls. How out of place this felt and how awkward the advertising for it was caused the Sonic Totino's thing to catch on as somewhat of a meme. The height of this was obviously Totino's Mania, a mod for Sonic Mania which replaced all the rings with tasty Totino pizza rolls. Knuckles' ghost phobia. A very cute character detail is that Knuckles has a fear of ghosts, despite how he tries to act tough in his SA2 team. He is obviously quite spooked when King Boo Boom shows up, and he alludes to a fear of spirits in the Death Chamber recap screen.
I got a bad feeling about this. It's creepy in here. Could there be spirits that guard the tombs? I don't think I can deal with this. But then how am I going to find the pieces of the emerald? Darn. I have no choice.
And this was also carried over into the movies, which is a nice detail.
Nothing scares an Echidna warrior.
Yeah. Do you remember what happened last movie night?
Why Shadow uses guns. Apparently the reason Shadow the Hedgehog introduced the often bemoaned gun gameplay was because fans would constantly request Sonic to use guns. That would obviously be even more out of character, so with Shadow being popular enough to warrant his own title, Sonic Team saw this as the perfect opportunity to fulfill these fans' requests. Video Game Donkey. In Sonic Mania, there was a Video Game Donkey Easter egg. To activate it, you had to grab one of the hooks in Hydro City Zone and press left left left, right right right, up up. That in itself is a reference to how you activated debug mode and level select in Tree and Knuckles. Doing it in Mania makes it so a sound clip of Donkey going yeah plays when those floor hand tingies grab you. Sonic Adventure Tree. When are we getting SA Tree? Are we ever going to get SA Tree? Did we already get SA Tree? These questions have rung true to Sonic fandom consistently from 2001 to today. Every few years, Asuka or some other Sonic Team guy will hint at wanting to make the elusive continuation to Sonic's greatest series. And just as often, we'll hear someone completely shut it down. Many feel we're closer now than ever, while with remakes and nostalgia driving the gaming industry so much, and Frontiers reintroducing multiple playable characters with different gameplay styles. But at the same time, many, myself included, fear we already have Sonic Adventure 3, just not in name. And that is in the form of Sonic 06. I mean, it feels like a very natural continuation of Adventure 2, adding a new Hedgehog, 3 playable campaigns versus SA2's 2, the huge scale, self-series story, multiple playable characters, a hub world, and the presence of humans, which Heroes lacked. Other people point to Sonic Unleashed as fitting the role, given its title of Sonic World Adventure in Japan, but besides that, I think it lacks most other features of the series. Others say Frontiers counts, since it has so many ties to SA1's story and multiple playable characters. Either way though, I wouldn't expect to see a game titled Sonic Adventure 3 anytime soon, if at all, since the series is over 20 years old at this point, and I'd be very concerned we'd end up in a Sonic 4 situation where the title is wasted on a mediocre game. Frankly, I'd much rather see remakes of the first 2 games, and maybe if those went well, then you could do it. Year of Shadow. 2024 was the Year of Shadow, where with him playing such a big role in the 3rd movie, we got multiple projects specifically focused on him. The movie itself, Shadow Generations, and the accompanying Dark Beginnings animation. Asuka said he would like to do other Year of Blank to highlight other characters, especially those who show up in the movies. So many are hoping next year, with Movie 4's release, we'll see another big push focused on either Amy or Metal Sonic. Personally, I would be really down for a spin-off Amy Rose game. Mountain Sonic statue. In 2015, a biker in the mountains of Japan made a social media post of a strange discovery he had made. Within these rural mountain roads, he came across a giant snowboarding Sonic statue, just hanging out strung up to the trees. The sheer weirdness of this drove many dedicated Sonic fans to launch an investigation to find that statue. This search and the whole saga behind it being documented in a series of videos by the YouTuber Badnik Mechanic, who also helped in the search. But given its rural location, that proved to be quite a task. While searching, the origin of the statue was found to be from a Sega world in Kadoma, Kyoto. It wasn't until 2018 a Sonic Stadium user finally discovered the statue's location, and it was eventually revealed the statue was owned by the Kotera family, who had saved the statue when it was going to be destroyed after the Sega world was shut down, hanging it up so people could more easily find the entrance to their home. With the statue finally found and its origins explained, the main concern was the state of the statue itself. Sitting outside for decades, it was already cracked and heavily sun damaged, seeming very close to falling apart. But thankfully in 2020, the statue was fully repaired by the owners themselves, and is still standing today. Shadow based on Tree and Knuckles' mural. It's a very popular theory that Gerald modeled Shadow after this mural found in Sonic 3. In the context it was created, it's obviously supposed to show the final boss of Sonic 3 and Knuckles. But we know Gerald researched the Echidna civilizations, given how we see recreations of SA1's Master Emerald shine on the Space Colony arc. So the idea is that Gerald saw this mural depicting a super flying hedgehog with upstanding quills, and assumed it was prophesizing some kind of god, which explains why the ultimate life form was made to look like a hedgehog, and why Shadow's quills are always standing up, the same as when Sonic goes super. This theory was then all but confirmed in Shadow Generations. Sonic's parents. Does Sonic have parents? Apparently in the lore of the games, it's a strict no, which is kinda odd because Sonic characters don't just appear, since Cream obviously has a mom, but I guess you're just not supposed to think about this too hard. However, in outside media he very much does. In the movies he has his adopted mother Longclaw, and the Archie comics show us Sonic has a whole ass family. His uncle Chuck, who originated from SatAM, who is just Sonic with a beard and bushy eyebrows. And then the comics show us his parents Bernadette and Jules the Hedgehog. Jules looks pretty crazy as he had to be roboticized after being fatally injured in the Great War. Amy's tarot cards. So the manual of Sonic CD established Amy has a particular fascination with tarot cards. This was always a cool little bit of trivia that would very occasionally get referenced, but nowadays has become pretty much her defining character trait, with most of her abilities in Frontiers using them instead of the Pico Pico hammer, and her taking every opportunity possible to tell us about them. These are being focused so heavily on, I feel, to make up for the fact that her previous defining characteristic, her overwhelming obsession with Sonic, has been stripped away from her for whatever reason. To be honest, I kind of hate these and how Amy is characterized nowadays, just kind of being generic nice girl with like the tarot cards being her one quirk. Like, I don't get why she can't use tarot cards and still be her old, passionate, kind of comic relief self. I'm really hoping the movie might reinvigorate her character somewhat, since it's getting pretty dire. Sonic OVA. The legendary Sonic OVA, animated by Studio Period, was made in 1996 and released as Sonic the Hedgehog the Movie for English speakers in '99. There's not too much to say other than this whole thing is really awesome. Being an OVA, the animation is superb, and this really is peak classic Sonic. Everyone looks so cool, Knuckles wears that cowboy hat, and it has so many iconic quotable scenes. I believe you can still find the whole thing on YouTube, and this should definitely be considered required viewing for any Sonic fan. Sega Sonic. This is a very weird early era branding thing where, due to Taito's arcade game Sonic Blast Man coming out shortly before Sega created Sonic, they had to use the name Sega Sonic for all Sonic arcade games and merchandise in Japan for the first few years of the franchise's existence. That's why we have titles like Sega Sonic Bros. Honestly, even though it doesn't really make sense, I always thought the Sega Sonic name was kinda tough. Yoshi. Certain lines in Sonic Adventure 2 are left untranslated in the English version. These only extend to like onomatopoeias and sounds of exertion. Apparently the story goes that when recording these lines, the Japanese Sega member present didn't understand that English and Japanese people use different expressions for that kind of stuff, and insisted they use the Japanese phrases because the English just didn't sound right to him. This is why Knuckles goes ora 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 when punching, and Sonic makes the very Japanese terry ass sound. And the most infamous example is of course Eggman's Yosh when you're petting your chow. Sonic was never good. After the announcement of Sonic Mania, IGN's video game news channel GameScoop published a video going over it that contained an insane rant on the series, categorized by the infamous line, "Sonic was never good."
We keep trying and trying and trying to find this thing that was never really actually there.
Sonic was never good.
Yeah, it was
a
25-year lie.
Yes.
Although their opinions are legitimately kind of triggering, I do feel like this reflects the general dismissive opinion most outsiders had of the series at the time, especially game journalist types. Some of the arguments for why Sonic was never good, the host present, is fans only like it because they want to have sex with Big the Cat, the games have trial and error level design, bottomless pits, and there are spikes, and also that there's drowning music. I am not joking, those are genuinely the reasons they give. The video obviously was universally hated by Sonic fans and is still brought up today, with the upload on the GameScoop channel sitting at 100,000 views, 500 likes, and a staggering 20,000 dislikes. Eggman x Satan. This is a funny observation where Eggman has some ties to Satan himself, or at least a Puyo Puyo character named Satan, since Mean Bean Machine has Eggman replacing Satan as the final opponent. Then in the Sonic Runners mobile game, for the Puyo Puyo crossover event, we get to see the two meet, giving us this very funny screenshot. Cope. In Spring Yard Zone of Sonic 1, you can find this bright neon sign reading Cope, displayed very prominently in the background. The leading theory is that this is referencing some kind of graphics processor program they used when making Sonic 1, but there is no actual source for it. I suppose it does make sense though, since you can also find the phrase CPU in another part of the level. Either way, with the phrase catching on as a meme much later, it now makes for a very funny screenshot. Splats. Splats is a cut enemy originally meant to appear in Sonic 1. Although he never appeared in the game, he must have been cut pretty late into development, since he did still show up in stuff like merchandise. Because of this, he became pretty well known and beloved, driving him to finally be officially used when Sonic Mania came out as an enemy inside Press Garden. Sonic Shorts. This is a collaborative animation project uploaded to the Sonic Paradox YouTube channel. The very first episode came out a whole 17 years ago, and it's made up of these extremely soulful flash animations. each one being a short gag by a different animator. Rewatching some of them for this video, they're surprisingly still pretty funny today, and very, very nostalgic for a lot of Sonic fans. Why does Sonic need a car? This is an incredibly common question and somewhat of a meme, since whenever a new Sonic racing game comes out, people will inevitably ask, why doesn't Sonic just get out of the car and run? Since he's the fastest thing alive, he just instantly win. This was actually answered by Asuka, who said Sonic drives in a car because he enjoys having fun with his friends and being on a level playing field, giving him the thrill of competition. Recolors. This is a bizarre trend in the Sonic fandom where when people want to make their Sonic OCs back in the day, they'd more often than not just be MS Paint recolors of existing characters. I do have to say there's a weird charm to these, and they are obviously mostly made by kids, so it's really not that big a deal. But there are literally thousands of these floating around places like DeviantArt. The funniest example is definitely the parody one, Cold Steel the Hedgehog. Pish, nothing personnel, kid. Dark Sonic. This is a transformation that Sonic uses one time in Sonic X, where after getting pissed off seeing Chris and Cosmo get captured, and harnessing the power of some fake Chaos Emeralds, he undergoes the pseudo supersonic transformation, with his eyes going white and his body turning completely black, killing a bunch of Metarex before transforming back. Even though it only shows up for like 30 seconds, this edgy form would obviously become extremely popular in the Sonic fandom, spawning tons of fan art and the like. Piplup-Fan07. This is the YouTuber behind the Sonic Stop Motion Adventure series, an incredibly popular series that ran for 27 episodes over almost a decade. This is another very nostalgic piece of the old Sonic fandom. It's really cool to see how much he manages to do with those old Jazzwares figures, and it's especially cool how much the series grows as it goes on, starting out as these very simple things he made as a little kid, and by the end you have all these crazy special effects and pretty impressive voice acting. Probably the coolest thing is just this year, Piplup actually returned, doing a video essay on Sonic music releases, which was actually really good. The Ages of Sonic. So fans have these unofficial ages, or eras of Sonic, to attempt to categorize how radically it has shifted over the years. This seems largely inspired by how Generations clearly split games up to that point into 3 sections. So the most accepted format is this one. First off is the Classic Age, which is obviously everything up to Adventure. Then the Adventure Era, which covers the Adventure games, Heroes, Shadow the Hedgehog, plus all the spin-offs. With 06 heralding the Dark Age, where Sonic sucked, containing 06 obviously, as well as some of the series' absolute lowest points, such as Sonic Genesis and Chronicles, but also some rare bright spots like Unleashed, arguably Colors. During this era, Sonic was undoubtedly at its lowest in terms of how the general gaming public saw the franchise, which is largely what led to the next one, the Meta Era. Named after the series' more self-aware attitude of the time, here the series was going through an identity crisis, relying overly so on nostalgia and cartoony Mario-style graphics, with really, really bland, uninspired safe titles like Lost World and Forces. And then most people consider Frontiers to be the herald of a new Renaissance era for Sonic, largely due to Ian Flynn's revisions and guidance when it came to the writing, the gameplay's high quality and ambition under Kishimoto, which also carried over to Shadow Generations. That, along with the popularity of the movies, just making Sonic way more popular and liked in general than it feels like he's been in decades, definitely makes this modern era feel like it's going to be a bright one. Ultimate Sonic Flash. This is a Newgrounds Flash game created by Denny's Grid, uploaded all the way back in 2005, which you can basically think of as a Flash rendition of Sonic Advance. This is basically what Sonic fans played in the school computer room back in the day, or at least I did. But playing it today, it is actually crazy how close this comes to feeling like an official 2D Sonic game. Like the physics are about 90% there, which is insane for a free Flash game over 20 years old. Tails Movie VA Movement. This refers to how there was a huge fan outcry to get Tails' game voice actor Colleen O'Shaughnessy to be the voice for Tails in the second Sonic movie. In the post-credits scene for Sonic 1, she obviously did the one-line Tails drops, but this being a big Hollywood movie, most assumed she'd be replaced by a big actor in the sequel, which I feel was almost certainly going to happen if it wasn't for this. It's been reported Tails was added in last minute, which is likely why they didn't lock down a big celebrity voice actor like they did for every other character. But I am happy things ended up the way they did, as I really can't imagine a better voice for Tails. Kronos Island Split. During the development of Frontiers, the two final islands, Rhea and Aranos, were originally part of the first island, Kronos. These were seemingly split apart late into development, as in the files for the Switch version, we can find an unfinished version of Kronos Island, which had Rhea and Aranos as one big map. According to Kishimoto on Twitter, this was done because playtesters complained the island was too big and boring, which honestly I think is fair. It definitely flows better jumping to different landscapes than returning to the grasslands of Kronos at the end instead of spending like the first half of the game with the same scenery. 1-2 S-Rank. Cyberspace Stage 1-2 in Frontiers is especially notable for having an absolutely brutal time requirement to get its S-Rank. I can only assume this was done by mistake because every other stage's S-Rank is comically easy. Although some people found this frustrating, I think most people actually really enjoyed the challenge. Like, you really have to learn every aspect of this stage and abuse things like boost dashing off rails to achieve the S-Rank. And it really highlights a major problem with S-Ranks in any Sonic game since Generations being way too easy. I feel like that kind of ruins the incentive to actually get good at the game, and seriously hampers the desire to replay and learn stages. Like, getting all I ranks in SA2 is super tough, but by the end of it you really do feel like you beat the game, and gain a deeper appreciation for its design and controls. I guess they do this so like kids playing don't have to feel bad getting D ranks all the time, but I don't know, I feel like having the time requirements being a kind of exponential curve where it's very easy to get a B rank but super hard to get an S rank so older players who desire a challenge could have fun too would be a bit more preferable. Knuckles' Infinite Jump. Easily the most infamous glitch out of the myriad of glitches in Sonic Boom. This is just what it sounds like, where by simply pausing and unpausing the game after jumping as Knuckles, you can gain a literally infinite height. As well as just being really funny, this can be used to completely break the game, like getting out of bounds and ending up in areas you're really not supposed to see. Layer Tree. Sonic in Melee. There is a famous hoax published in Electronic Gaming Monthly claiming you could unlock Sonic and Tails as playable characters in Smash Melee. The whole thing was an April Fool's Day prank, but the screenshots they show are like really convincing. They edited Sonic and Tails models into a screenshot, and then they have this very cool unlock pop-up reading, "A dream's been cast, Sonic and Tails join the Melee." This goes from a harmless prank to straight up cruel, with them listing the requirements to unlock Sonic and Tails as defeating 20 of those wireframe guys in the cruel melee mode, which if you've played the game you'd know is insanely difficult. Like, there has to have been at least a few hundred people out there who spent hours and hours tearing their hair out only to reach the score and discover nothing happens. And one crazy detail is, unbeknownst to EGM, this was actually almost true, as there were discussions to get Sonic into Melee once the series went multiplat, but there simply was not enough time to get him in with how quickly the game was produced. Blue Balls. In early versions of Sonic 3, the Blue Spheres minigame used to have the text "Get Blue Balls" pop up at the beginning of each one, which the US team apparently laughed at very hard before ultimately changing it to "Get Blue Spheres" as it is today. Sonic Extreme. Sonic Extreme, not to be confused with Sonic Extreme or Sonic Extreme, is yet another unreleased Sonic title. This was pitched to Sega in 2003 by Vision Space, who also animated the pre-rendered cinematics for Sonic Heroes. We actually learned a lot of this when the prototype was discovered on an Xbox dev kit back in 2011. The game itself is a skateboarding game, and in this pitch version you can play as either Sonic or Shadow skating around a seaside hill-inspired skate rink. The fact that the characters use hoverboards also spawned a conspiracy that after rejecting this pitch, Sega stole the idea from these guys to make Sonic Riders. I do think it's maybe possible this helped inspire them, but also skateboarding was just really popular at the time. And Sonic Riders is a Mario Kart style game, whereas Extreme is just a Tony Hawk clone. Marble Zone UFOs. During Sonic 1's development, Marble Zone originally had these crazy looking UFOs flying in the background. They look really cool and are a pretty iconic piece of cut content, like that stupid ball in Green Hill Zone. And there was a leaked prototype we got in 2021, which lets us actually see these in action. Silver Sonic. Silver Sonic is the name given to this funny looking dude in the Game Gear version of Sonic 2, who shows up as the penultimate boss fight. This is his only appearance, which makes him somewhat obscure, and an interesting fact is, in terms of release, this is the very first robotic clone of Sonic made by Eggman. Well, by a few days at least. And this is what those weird little gray Sonics from Sonic Mania were. Time Eater is Mephiles. This is a very popular fan theory stating that the Time Eater from Sonic Generations was a reincarnation or a leftover fragment of Mephiles the Dark. The theory does actually seem pretty sound, basically assuming that Mephiles would be powerful enough to escape being erased from existence after the events of 06 and would take the form of the Time Eater. This idea spawning from just them looking kind of similar, especially the amorphous black cloud Mephiles was before copying Shadow's form, and both being supremely powerful with the ability to bend time to their will. However, this theory was of course completely disproved when Shadow Generations included Mephiles as his own boss fight. Which kinda sucks, but the fight itself was so cool, I can't be mad. President Photo. In Shadow the Hedgehog, we see the President of the United States has a framed picture of Sonic and Shadow on his desk in the Oval Office. The picture itself shows Sonic and Shadow posing in front of the White House, which I guess means the two of them visited together at some point. Maybe the President invited them to dinner to thank them for saving the world in SA2. Sonic Underground Robotnik's Revenge. This is a bit of a Sonic oddity. Robotnik's Revenge is notable for being the only VHS release of Sonic Underground, collecting 3 episodes and a bonus episode of the Super Mario Bros. Super Show. Seeing those two together at this time is already really weird, but the strangest thing is the cover art for this shows Sonic with blue arms. No Hopers. This is a screen you can find in Donkey Kong Country 2 called Cranky's Video Game Heroes, which shows how many of those DK coins you collected. But the interesting thing is, this is a rare case of Nintendo throwing shade at Sega, as on the podium we see epic cool Nintendo characters, and then in the bottom is the trash characters, dubbed No Hopers, which shows a trash can with Earthworm Jim's laser gun and Sonic shoes. The Nouveau DRM. Every PC version of Sonic games since Sonic Mania has faced significant backlash for utilizing the Nouveau DRM. This is basically a software that companies add to their games as an attempt to stop piracy. But the problems come in with what the Nouveau comes with, namely how much it eats up your PC's power, constantly running in the background, causing significantly worse performance in games it's implemented in, as well as forcing you to be online to even launch the game, and worst of all, it doesn't even work. It at best holds off games getting cracked for like a few days. This has resulted in Sonic games getting an influx of negative reviews on Steam, not because of the game's quality itself, but because of utilizing the Nouveau software. This was most visible with Sonic Mania itself launching to a mixed review score, even though everybody loved the actual game. I've heard companies add the Nouveau just to appease shareholders, and even they know it doesn't work, but they just want to show that they're like doing something to fight piracy. Sonic Dreams Collection. This is a 2015 PC fan game, which is apparently intended to hold a mirror up to the bizarre relationship the internet and Sonic shares. This went viral when it came out with all the usual Let's Players doing videos on it. It's essentially a collection of increasingly bizarre and disturbing minigames, starting with an OC maker, then having you taking the role of a cameraman, filming increasingly sexually charged and creepy interactions between various ragdolling Sonic characters, and ending with a first-person date with Sonic himself, which is definitely the best part. Genocide City. Genocide City is another cut zone from Sonic 2. The only visual of the stage we have is this concept art. It is obviously mostly well known for its insane title that would have definitely been changed if it was ever completed. There is actually a theory that Genocide City was intended to be a one-act stage, which had its actual layout repurposed as Act 3 of Metropolis Zone, explaining why it's the only zone with a third act. This seems heavily supported by a quote by Yuji Naka, stating just that, but not specifying which level was repurposed. Irish the Hedgehog. This is an official video posted on Sega's social medias to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. It's a funny parody of the SA2 recap screens featuring the one and only Jacksepticeye as Irish's voice.
So then I went down towards Station Square and I bump into Big and it's just like, how's the big size of you? And he's all like, Irish, how in the name of tickle are you? And I'm just all, you know, story horse, how's it going, Asher Grand? And then he's like, Sunk was just here, but that Egypt was nattering about nothing. And so then I thought of me old fella, and suddenly Big says, get out of that garden. And I thought he might have gone stone mad, and maybe he's just sick as a box of frogs.
The Slap. This is one of the most infamous moments from the Sonic comic. Coming from issue 134, this takes place after Sonic returns to Mobius after being presumed dead. When he and Sally reunite, she orders Sonic to remain at her side, but Sonic insists on continuing to fight Eggman, leading to the infamous slap panel and the two breaking up. From what I can tell, people generally consider this to be one of the lowest points of the comics, feeling Sally's being incredibly out of character and unlikable here, and it obviously being like a 9/11 for Sun Alley fans. Originally, both Sky Chase segments in Sonic Adventure 1 were going to end with you fighting this crazy tree-headed robot dragon. This was apparently just cut because it was too difficult, but the dragon remains in the files, and you can find gameplay with him put back into the stages with his animations fully intact. Shipping wars. Like any fandom, shipping culture is certainly a thing in the Sonic fandom. Due to the frankly absurd amount of characters, if you're counting stuff like the comics, there is an endless amount of different ships with their own dedicated warriors. The most popular ones from what I can tell is Sun Amy and Sun Alley, obviously, then Sonado, Shad Rouge, Nux Rouge, Vector and Vanilla, Shad Amy, and Wisp Tangle. There's a lot. But this shipping shit gets serious for people, especially when it comes to the Sonic fandom. It's actually quite infamous for being remarkably toxic when it comes to defending the honor of your own ship, or more problematically, harassing artists and alike for depicting their preferred ship over your own one. Metallic Madness Dark Lyrics. If you listen to the lyrics in Metallic Madness from CD, they are really negative and kind of dark compared to the usual you'd expect from Sonic music. Kinda crazy, but it makes more sense when you realize the robotic voice probably implies this is supposed to be sung from like Metal Sonic's point of view. Sega Sonic Bros. Sega Sonic Bros is a cancelled arcade game that was going to come out in 1992. The game itself is a simple puzzle game. The most interesting thing about this is that since this comes so early, instead of different characters, this features 3 official Sonic recolors, which just looks really silly to me for some reason. Apparently these are not Sonic's long-lost twin brothers or anything, and are simply all named Sonic the Hedgehog, so I guess they're like clones? Japanese box art quotes. The box art for the classic Sonic games in Japan have these really interesting little inspirational quotes written on them. Sonic 1 and 2 have the line, "Don't just sit there and waste precious time. When you want to do something, do it right away. Do it when you can. It's the only way to live a life without regrets." CD's back has a quote directly from Sonic apparently. "Ask not what others can do for you, but what you can do for others." Damn, Sonic said that, dude. Sonic Trees is undoubtedly the most bizarre. Sonic races through the green fields. The sun races through a blue sky with clouds. The ways of his heart are much like the sun. Sonic runs and rests. The sun rises and sets. Don't give up on the sun. Don't make the sun laugh at you. Sonic Ice Cream. The Sonic Ice Cream bar made by Blue Bunny is both a very nostalgic snack for Americans and a huge meme, mainly because of how when you take it out of its packaging, it more often than not looks extremely goofy and messed up, most prominently with its green eye dots always being placed incorrectly. Sonic 1 Amiga port. There are 2 separate supposed Sonic Amiga ports. This first one comes from a German gaming magazine named The Games Machine, and it actually turned out to be fake, using screenshots from an Amiga demo made by one Night of Wind, which are basically like animations made on the Amiga hardware. Meanwhile, a UK magazine reported on an Amiga and other home computers port by US Gold, a company who had worked with Sega before, and this one is seemingly actually real. There are no legitimate screenshots of this port, and it's unknown if actual development began, as it ultimately went unreleased when Sega decided they wanted to do the PC ports themselves. Fields the Rabbit. Fields the Rabbit was another potential character created when Sega was trying to design a mascot to rival Nintendo's Mario. You can definitely see the same Felix the Cat rubber hose cartoony influence in his design that old Sonic art has. Apparently the pitch with Fields was that he was going to stretch out his ears to grab and throw enemies / interact with the stage. One interesting thing is, many people from this infer this concept was recycled for another Sega mascot, Rystar, since he similarly stretches out his arms to grab onto enemies. Fields became a lot more well known recently when he was included as an alternate skin for Sonic in Sonic Superstars, going by the name Ribbit. Sonic R was an F1 game. When brought on to do Sonic R, Traveler Tales made the game by basically transforming an F1 game they're already working on into a Sonic game, which completely explains why it has such weird, stiff controls. Sonic Jam Gamescom. This is a port of Sonic Jam, a Sega Saturn game collecting Sonic 1, 2, 3, and Knuckles. It's notable for being absolutely ungodly awful in practically every way imaginable due to the shittiness of the Gamescom hardware. It for one is completely in black and white, obviously has terrible screen crunch to fit the tiny handheld screen, and it seems to run at a permanent 4 frames per second. But undoubtedly the worst offender is the downright rancid sound design. It also just uses the same nondescript beep boop song for every stage, and on top of that, calling this a port is extremely generous, as it in reality only comprises of 3 songs total, 1 from each of the games. Sonic 2 bonus video. This is an especially memorable Sonic video. I assume most of you already know, but if you don't, Cybershell is known for making some of the best Sonic Let's Plays all the way back in 2008. And after the final episode of his Sonic 2 playthrough, he promised to do a Sonic 2 bonus video, in the same vein as his Sonic 1 bonus video, which showed various Easter eggs and cut content from that game, only to not deliver the video and eventually disappear from the internet entirely. Then return out of nowhere and upload the promised video a whole 9 years later. The video itself is quite good and funny. It shows off a lot of stuff that non-hardcore Sonic fans definitely would not be aware of, but really it's the sheer absurdity of delivering on a promised video 9 years after the fact that made this so memorable. As well as how Cybershell quickly established himself as one of the most beloved Sonic YouTubers right after his epic return, only to disappear again the next year, this time for 3 years, but since then has been uploading various interesting little Sonic and non-Sonic videos. Sonic dies saving Pikachu. Yeah, it may seem weird in Smash Ultimate World of Light's opening cinematic that Sonic dies to this laser everyone's running from. I mean, Kirby manages to get away riding his star, so Sonic should be able to run way faster than that? Well, the way they explain this is by showing Sonic slowing down to try and save Pikachu before he was also eviscerated. SA1 Hidden NPC Dialogue. There is this very cool NPC dialogue in Sonic Adventure where a boy in Station Square will say this. "Oh boy, it's Sonic. I know, it was Sonic who saved the world during Little Planet incident and the Angel Island incident." The reason this is on the iceberg is that you have almost certainly never gotten this when you played SA1, as it for whatever reason was only present in the Japanese version and was cut from all other releases. I really can't imagine why. I think maybe they thought referencing past games would confuse new players, but Sonic Adventure 1 has a ton of other callbacks, so I'm at a loss, really. Movie pose references. There are a ton of little references to the games and the Sonic movies, as you'd expect, but probably the coolest and most subtle ones are the tons of poses and animations that directly reference the games. So here's a rapid fire list. Sonic does his Unleashed Drift animation here, he does his classic balancing animation, and the Smash render. The second movie has the adventure pose, Sonic 3 obviously has the SA2 intro recreation, as well as the shadow teleport kick from his game's opening cinematic. Eggette. In a classic case of seeing a sprite as something completely different, when Eggman's upside down inside the spider robot tank, people remarked how it really looks like an anime girl, his mustache being her hair and red nose a jewel on her forehead. This spawned the creation of Eggette, basically a fan-made little kid female Robotnik OC that became quite popular and has a lot of fan content made about it. The original Sonic movie. You guys remember this? Simply titled Sonic, this is a 2013 Sonic fan film by Blue Core Studios. It's only 15 minutes and I guess is more of like a proof of concept. Watching it now, it is definitely far from good, but especially at the time it was really cool to see a live-action Sonic tank that was, for a fan film, pretty high quality visually. The plot pretty much just follows a bunch of gun soldiers and Sonic going through a forest as they fight random gamma robots. Sonic himself is only in the movie for like less than 5 minutes, and his design is very interesting looking. Also, the movie goes for a sort of grim, dark, serious tone, like everyone calls Sonic the Blue Blur, in a way that feels like it's trying to be cool, like how people call Batman the Dark Knight. Definitely the most interesting part of this whole thing is the actors they managed to get, including Julie L. White as Sonic, who voiced him in all the 90s cartoons, and Mike Pollock doing an actually quite good live-action version of Eggman. And of course, the random gun soldier played by the one and only Doug Walker. Sonic Sense. Have you ever wondered why the hell Sonic randomly sneezes in the CD intro? Well, this is actually remnants of an abandoned power Sonic was intended to have from CD onward, known as Sonic Sense. Presumably inspired by Spidey Sense, this would cause Sonic to sneeze whenever danger approached, and was intended to be a thing that actually happened during gameplay, as we can see through these unused sprites. Although it does sound kinda cool, I can imagine this was cut because having Sonic randomly stop to sneeze was probably insanely annoying in actual gameplay. Simpsons. The Simpsons has referenced Sonic multiple times. Sonic shows up in Bart's imagination, urging him to steal Bone Storm in that famous Christmas episode.
Don't do it, son. How's that game gonna help your putting?
Just take it! Take it, take it, take it, take it, take it! Take it!
Then in a much later season, there's a billboard showing the actual Sonic and Amy Rose promoting chastity. And finally, a parody of Sonic is also present in the Simpsons game.
I used to be so fast. I forget why I hated Eggman so much.
Tectoy. Tectoy is a Brazilian company that managed to strike a deal with Sega to publish their games and consoles in the country. Tectoy are also the company behind the infamously awful Sibo, their attempt at an original console, which saw some insanely interesting ports of several well-known games like Resident Evil 4, which are essentially like official demakes, and we almost got a Sonic Adventure port on it, which would have been so fascinating to see, but the Sibo's complete failure nixed those plans. Santiago. This may look like Sonic, but it is in fact an imposter, going by the name Santiago. This is seemingly just a meme criticizing how much Sega has changed classic Sonic's design and personality in his recent appearances, which most people do not like. The meme itself really caught on for a while, with people calling this modern classic Sonic Santiago as a shorthand to criticize his soullessness. Sonic 1 TGS Demo. This is the earliest known build of Sonic 1. Sega showed it off at a Tokyo Toy Show in 1990, and it being so early, it has a ton of weird little differences that make it like the holy grail of Sonic lost media. The title screen is set on a black background, Green Hill Zone looks way different, with extra layers of parallax scrolling, featuring these distinctive mountains and skyscrapers in the background, and more trees and rocks in the foreground. In this screenshot, we can see this really weird looking enemy that is seemingly not a badnik of any kind, and can actually be seen in some fairly early concept art made by Naoto Oshima. But besides some heavily obscured video footage from Sega's exhibition at the show, these screenshots are all we have to prove this thing even existed, and apparently it has since been lost by Sega themselves. Sonic Colors Act Structure. So Colors was originally going to follow a much more traditional Sonic level structure. You know, each level is a zone with an Act 1, Act 2, and a boss at the end. But in the final game, every zone has like 6 or more acts. And as you play, you might notice that a lot of these are clearly lesser than the others, namely the 2D stages that only take like less than a minute to beat. This is because they were originally intended to be extra optional challenge stages, the same as all the ones in Generations for example. But for whatever reason, during development, Sonic Team decided to make these mandatory, maybe to make the game seem bigger than it actually was. But I do honestly consider this a pretty big mistake since I feel it greatly hampers the game's pacing. Sonic Gather Battle. So this is a actually pretty cool looking Sonic fan game. It seems to be like a fighting game that uses modified versions of the Sonic Advance sprites. But the reason this is on the iceberg isn't the game itself, but rather what came with it. You see, this had a DRM anti-cheat on it, which let the game see anything you did on your computer, and if it detected you searched anything along the lines of Sonic Gather Battle cheats, it'd send your IP address to the creator, who would then put you on a list and edit the game itself, rendering it unplayable. Then to have this removed, you'd have to actually email him and ask to be removed. Apparently the main reason he did this was to stop anyone from ripping his custom sprites. which is already completely insane, but on top of that, if you were added to the list, the game would essentially turn into a real-life creepypasta, making everything all creepy and broken, with endless spawning enemies, blood-red skies, and invincible ghosts showing up that insta-kill you. Sonic Runners. Sonic Runners is a 2014 mobile game notable for being developed by Sonic Team themselves. This game had a dedicated fanbase that really loved it, and it's one of those endless runner style games. But it does have some cool stuff that sets it apart. Primarily the really nice art style, great music, and letting you play as characters that were almost never used anywhere else, especially at this time, like Mephiles, the Werehog, and Tikal. But Sega themselves decided to unlist the game only 2 years later. Although the game was saved via Sonic Runners Revival, a fan remake which allows you to play all its content without the typical microtransactions and pop-up ads, Sega themselves also made a sequel replacement for Runners in 2017 titled Sonic Runners Adventure. But it is literally just a worse version of the game we already had, being far more generic, with much worse monetization, a heavily downgraded art style, and lacking any of the cool deep-cut characters. Arios and Nails. These are early concept designs for Rouge and Shadow. Arios was obviously leaning way harder into the dark version of Sonic direction, with most of the concepts basically just being a far edgier, dark blue/black Sonic with his quills down. The one most fans know is this version with a scar across his eye, which actually showed up officially as a skin for Shadow in Shadow Gens. Meanwhile, Rouge's early concept had her name as Nails. You can see her design did not change quite as radically. Here we have a version of her without wings and ear piercings, and she wears an outfit that looks more like a typical treasure hunter rather than a stealthy spy type outfit she ended up with. Sonic's old ass ugly model. This is referring to how Sega has seemingly been using the same Sonic model since 2008, only slightly editing it each game. Many fans have been pleading with Sonic Team to please make a new model for Sonic, as at this point I do believe it looks incredibly rough, especially in promotional materials. I mean, compare this to all the visual updates Mario's cast has received with each new generation, and you'll see the reason for the controversy. Metal Sonic is roboticized Sonic. This is a really old fan theory that the Metal Sonic we know is a future version of Sonic that lost to Eggman and got roboticized, similar to how Mobians get turned into robots in the Archie/SatAM canon. This is a cool theory in that it kinda add an extra weight to the whole Metal thinking he's the real Sonic team, but this obviously has been disproved various times. Japan does not like Sonic. Despite being a Japanese character, Sonic is not very popular in Japan, like at all. This is likely due to a combination of factors. The most obvious is that Sonic was explicitly designed to appeal to Western audiences. Also that the console wars were not really a thing in Japan, which was a big part of Sonic's marketing, and all the outside media like comics and cartoons were also Western only, as well as the Mega Drive just not being particularly successful there either. It's not like he has no Japanese fanbase, but it's just way smaller than other territories, especially after Sega left the hardware market. Like, new releases always rank super low on the Famitsu sales charts. Although Sega has recently been making a concerted effort to change this, and were somewhat successful with Frontiers selling unusually well over there. The Doctor's mustache is fake. This is an unused line for Omochao in Sonic Adventure 2.
Did you know the Doctor's mustache is fake?
Many people inferred this to mean Eggman's mustache is actually fake, which would be a very funny bit of lore, but in reality this was actually meant to refer to the Professor Chow in the game, which that in itself reveals why the line went unused, as the translators incorrectly translated the word professor as doctor. Knuckles over Supersonic. This is a weird power scaling thing, since in the intro of Sonic 3 Knuckles is able to punch the emeralds out of Supersonic, which seems to imply even in his base form Knuckles is stronger than Supersonic. I think it's supposed to be a thing where Sonic's guard was down, like Goku getting killed by that random Frieza soldier, or they just did it to make Knuckles look cool. Sonic Ambassadors. Sonic has had two major ambassadors over the years, basically just people Sega works with to promote Sonic to their fanbases. The most famous example is obviously Aaron Hansen/Egoraptor, who was infamously hated by pretty much every Sonic fan due to him constantly shitting on the games whenever he played them, and most notably claiming they were terribly designed, when in reality he was just kind of bad at them.
a period of time they hired me.
Yes.
And now they don't because everybody got mad that I was doing official Sonic things.
Why? Because you're notoriously honest about your Sonic opinions?
Yeah.
I see.
But it's like, fine, whatever, I get it. But it also pisses me off because I love Sonic. So if any of you at home are wondering if your voice makes a difference, it does.
Yeah. And it ruined my life.
Whenever they would post something with me in it, and all the comments on Twitter were like, "What the fuck? Aaron hates Sonic. Fuck you, Sega." They saw them.
His replacement was a VTuber named Korone, who's a dog girl, I guess. She has been accepted far more graciously by both fans and Sega themselves, with her even getting a Japan exclusive DLC pack for Sonic Frontiers, giving Sonic Korome teen shoes and replacing the Koku with these things, which I think she uses to represent her audience on her stream. I don't know VTubers, man. Rouge winking. Little Easter egg here where if you go into first person and stare at Rouge in Sonic Heroes, after waiting a little while, she will wink at the camera. Madonna. Madonna is another early character concept designed by Oshima. She was presumably intended to be a Princess Peach-esque damsel in distress love interest for Sonic to save. But obviously, as Sonic's world took form, a human love interest didn't really fit into it. However, one place we did see Madonna show up was a screen for the Lost Tokyo Toy Show demo, which proves she was intended to be in the game, at least in this early point in development. And also, like every other obscure /cut character, she also popped up in the Archie comics, being reimagined as a gun agent. Haunted Station Square statue. The famous Burger Guy statue in Station Square is pretty odd. It's almost like he has a mind of his own. If you talk to this NPC, she'll tell you the statue goes on trips sometimes, and notes how he almost seems like a real person, which it would seem she's actually right about, as there are a few missions revolving around the Burger Guy in the game. One sees him in the Lake of Mystic Ruins, which is probably meant to be a reference to the famous Curse of the Colonel thing, but then there's another one which shows he somehow made his way onto the egg carrier, and on top of that, he speaks to you directly asking to be saved. So yeah, it would appear this thing is sentient. Sonic Tree broken transitions. One of the coolest parts of Sonic Tree is how the ending of some levels transition into the next, but in the final game this only happens like a handful of times. It might not surprise you to learn it was intended for there to be transition cutscenes like this for every single zone. This is supported by base Sonic Tree stage select, showing an earlier list for the levels. For example, here Ice Cap would have followed Flying Battery, with the transition being Sonic breaking through Flying Battery and falling to the snowing mountain below, using a broken piece of the ship as a snowboard. Sega mandates. So after the Penders lawsuit incident, Sega decided they should be a bit more hands-on with how the comics and other media was going a little crazy with Sonic. And so they created a list of Sonic mandates. Apparently stuff on the list is that male characters are banned from wearing pants, Mobius is no longer canon or to be mentioned ever, classic and modern characters cannot mix unless through time travel, so no modern versions of Ray and Mighty for example, Sonic's world may not be named, money does not exist in the Sonic world, and the most famous, Sonic can't show too much emotion or cry. You may notice a lot of these rules are broken by the movies, so I suppose Sega can't force them to change too much there, or maybe they're okay with it since it's obviously a separate canon. Either way, fans really hate these mandates and claim it limits Sonic's story potential, necessitating bland, safe stories. Which there may be some truth to, but I feel like these are mostly fair and keep Sonic media tonally consistent. Even if some are really stupid and arbitrary, like the money thing and not naming Sonic's world. Sad AM cliffhanger. Sad AM ends on a huge cliffhanger. The final episode sees the Freedom Fighters defeat Robotnik once and for all, but ends on the silhouette and eyes of a new villain rising to take his place. But before we could find out who that was, the show was cancelled at season 2. There were many theories over who it could be. Many expected it to be either Knuckles or Metal Sonic to tie into the new games, but in the end a writer for the series came out and confirmed it was to be Nagus, a one-off antagonist from an earlier episode who would have risen to become the primary antagonist from season 3 onwards. Hydro City Zone versus Hydrocity Zone. So what do you guys think? Is it pronounced Hydro City Zone or Hydrocity Zone? I do not care what anyone else says, I think it has to be Hydro City. I mean, it just makes sense since there are so few classic stages with one-word titles. And most of them are all the descriptor followed by a location. You know, Emerald Hill, Chemical Plant, Green Hill, Mystic Cave, Hydro City. It just fits. The only stages that are named similar to the alleged Hydrocity is Metropolis Zone, Labyrinth Zone, and Sandopolis, and I think that's it. So purely by probability, I'm saying it should be Hydro City. But my own feelings aside, after this debate started to pick up serious steam in the 2020s, it actually got officially acknowledged by Sega. First, the IDW comics depict a scene where Sonic and Tails argue over the name, Sonic arguing for Hydro City, pointing out it's an ancient city full of order. And the official Sega account held a poll which had a perfect 50-50 split for the two names. However, the entire thing was finally fully put to bed when Yuji Naka himself said it's meant to be pronounced Hydro City. The Man Tree. This is a really funny looking poster you can find in Sonic Adventure 1. The weird part is this is only visible during Tails' boss fight against Eggman, assumedly because it takes place inside of an early or altered version of the area outside the casino. The poster itself seems like it's supposed to be a parody of American action films that just follow a random guy, like Die Hard or First Blood, and others claim because of his outfit it's specifically meant to be referencing Men in Black. You mean the Chaos Emeralds, right?
There are concerns over the safety of America's cities ever since the space colony's attack on the moon. The tweet continues, what do you have to say about the theft of dangerous artifacts that could cause attacks like this to happen again?
You mean the Chaos Emeralds? I'm going to assume you mean the Chaos Emeralds, because if that's what you're concerned about, I've got one of them right here. Chaos Emeralds! Mr. President, put your hands up and turn around slowly. Chaos Control!
Toei/Junio's Sonic. The epic Sonic CD intro and outro animations are animated by Studio Junio, but Sega actually hired Toei Animation to do it. Toei was actually, I guess, too busy, so they subcontracted Junio to do the actual work, whose animators were apparently made to work under extremely strict deadlines and not paid very well for. So because of that, the fans have shifted from referring to these cutscenes and the Sonic within as Junio's Sonic as a way to show respect, instead of the previously common Toei Sonic. Sonic X Pilot. The Sonic X Pilot is notable for having much better animation than the actual series, with a lot of the cuts being reused for its intro. Another interesting thing is it shows a bunch of anthropomorphic animals populating the world, as well as humans. Meaning Sonic and friends probably did not travel to our world in this early version, and it's more like the world seen in the adventure games. As well as that Shadow shows up, with the pilot seeming to imply he would have been a major character right from the beginning. Tails fucking dies. So in Sonic 2's 8-bit version, you were supposed to free Tails and all the other animals on South Island. But because of this, if you get the bad ending of the game, the credits show Sonic running alone, and stopping at the end to look at the sky, which shows a ghostly vision of Tails. I know this was almost certainly not the intention, but to a lot of players this made it seem like Tails died, since you never saved him. And this spread as a very popular piece of trivia, like, dude, did you know in the Sonic 2 game on Game Gear, Tails dies in the bad ending? I think this probably spread because almost no one's actually played the 8-bit versions of Sonic 1 and 2, since this is easily disproven by viewing the good ending of the game, which is the exact same except Tails is with Sonic, and I see an image of both of them in the night sky. 3D Blast Secret Level Select. In perhaps one of the most genius ways to pass off a glitch as intentional design, when it was found Sonic 3D Blast Genesis port would easily crash if the cartridge was even slightly moved. Instead of fixing it, which I assume would have required a lot of work, the team instead coded it so when the game crashed, instead of a typical error message, it'd take you to the stage select screen with the message, "Congratulations, you have found the secret level select screen," this allowing the game to pass Sega's quality standards and get it published. Smash Moveset Controversy. It is very common to see people bemoan the lack of creativity in Sonic's Smash moveset, especially compared to the love and attention pretty much every other character gets. Personally, I always believed this was done out of time constraints because Sonic was added quite late into Brawl's development, but at the same time, other characters that fell to this fate later had their movesets updated to better represent them, like Ganondorf for example. As for the moveset Sonic does have, it's a few of his attacks from Sonic the Fighters, which is cool, but besides that it is almost entirely made up of nondescript variations of the spin dash. And I do agree there's endless other things you could pull from to make him more interesting. The first ideas to come to my mind are maybe giving him the different shield powers from Sonic 3 as his air specials. There's the Bounce Bracelet, or maybe he could pull out Excalibur for his forward smash, the same way Ganon does. Owl Civilization. So everyone knows there is a powerful owl civilization in the movie universe, but did you know there's evidence of the same one existing in the games? The biggest point here is that there are clearly owl faces chiseled into the walls of Labyrinth Zone, and a few other little bits of bird imagery like the also seemingly really old totem poles in Aquatic Ruin. I'm not sure how much I believe this, but at the very least could believe the whole Labyrinth Zone face is where the movie writers got the idea for Longclaw. Ken Pontac alongside Warren Graff are two TV writers best known for working on Happy Tree Friends as well as a bunch of kids shows. They were brought on to write the English scripts for all Sonic games from Sonic Colors all the way to Team Sonic Racing. And well, given the quality of those scripts, these guys are unsurprisingly pretty disliked in the Sonic fandom.
Know him, who they call Baldy Nosehair.
Baldy Nosehair? That's the best thing I've heard all day. I gotta remember that one.
Probably a close second to Ken Penders as the most hated people to have worked on Sonic. And they get a lot of the blame for those games' obnoxious, overly childish humor, flanderized characterization, and lack of stakes. I feel like the only thing it's fair to blame them for is the dialogue, since from my understanding they just kind of localized the script written by the Japanese team, but the dialogue can be pretty bad.
None of this is good, Vector. That's why it's called war.
They were of course replaced by Ian Flynn as of Sonic Frontiers, and the quality of Sonic's scripts has absolutely rocketed in quality since then, even if the references he puts in can be a little ham-fisted sometimes.
Traveling through time, Sonic!
Without the time stones?
But it's also very clear he has a great appreciation and understanding for Sonic's characters and world, so I really wouldn't want anyone else. Design dramas. Okay, I put this here as an umbrella term to acknowledge all the different controversies when it comes to Sonic and Friends designs, because there's one for literally every single little change that has ever been made. One of the most famous ones was back in the day people absolutely hated the fact Sega made Sonic's eyes green in Adventure. It seems really silly looking back with how loved Uekawa's designs are nowadays, but people saw the adventure games as ruining Sonic's cute design, and considered it really try-hard. Another big one is Sonic's arms being blue in Sonic Boom, which I agree looked awful, but not pepper spraying a GameStop employee awful. And a more recent one is Sonic's quills, which have been circumcised by Sonic Team for some reason. Each game they make those things smaller and smaller, to the point they just look like spiky hair almost. Personally, I much prefer them being longer because it makes for a more striking silhouette. And also his spikes are like his whole thing, because he like jumps on enemies, hitting them with his spikes, because he's a hedgehog. Nick Arcade build. This is an early build of Sonic 2 that was dumped online in 2007 by a user named DRX. It gets its name from seeming to be the prototype used on the Nick Arcade TV game show. The most interesting differences seen here is that when Tails gets hit, you lose rings, which I cannot believe was ever even considered a good idea. And another insane one is if you hit the wall while running at top speed, Sonic will like bounce off the wall, making you watch an animation of him falling and slowly getting back up. Oh, and the title screen simply uses Emerald Hill's background instead of the custom artwork of West Island in the final version. Then some more small differences is Sonic's run animation is slightly different, and the end stage signpost uses this really creepy looking image of Sonic staring directly at you. Kanye West. Kanye West is a Sonic fan. There's a funny video of him playing and glazing Sonic 2 at Kid Cudi's house.
And the animation style is so dope. It's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
It's Jim Carrey's character.
Yeah.
I'm glad I beat him because I was out of rings.
And the real reason this is on the iceberg is the cancelled TurboGrafx 16 album Kanye was set to release in 2016. Although we never got to hear it, we did get this Instagram post from within the recording studio, which shows a list of different video games, which were almost certainly planned to be sampled for the video game themed album. And among those names, you can find Sonic Colors. Zelda DLC. Being a Wii U exclusive, one very cool thing Lost World had was a full-on Legend of Zelda DLC pack. Now it is just one stage, but the love and care put into this is pretty awesome. It opens with you exploring Ocarina of Time's Hyrule Field with Deku Scrubs and those little skeletons instead of badniks, rupees instead of rings, and the Zelda heart system as your life, which you can upgrade by finding heart containers throughout the stage. Then you go through a dungeon area, dodging rolling Gorons, and Link himself shows up on his Loftwing. There is also a Yoshi's Island DLC, which works much the same, this one specifically based off of Yoshi's Woolly World, with Sonic copying his egg throwing abilities. This one's special in that it's likely the closest we'll ever get to a true Mario x Sonic crossover game. And that's the video. Obviously this is only part 1 of 3, so we did not get to the really obscure stuff, but I tried my best to keep it interesting and add in little extra bits to the more well-known entries. So hopefully you still learned at least some new things, even if you're a hardcore Sonic freak. Plan is to do one part of this iceberg and a normal video for this channel on repeat till it's done. So you'll hopefully not have to wait more than like 6 weeks for each part. Please comment if I got anything wrong, since I'm sure there's at least 1 or 2 errors in here. And I will be doing a complete DX version of this iceberg when all the parts are complete, with corrections and bonus entries, which I already have like 25 of just from researching this part. But if you know any Sonic stuff that is like really obscure or I might have missed, comment below and I might add it in that. And I guess I'll shout out your comment too. Wouldn't that be cool? But yes, thank you very much for watching, and be sure to subscribe to catch the next part. Yeah, that's it. Bye bye.